Joining us now, Congressman Darrell Issa from House Judiciary and former Deputy National Security Advisor KT McFarland. First, we have to deal with this. The president is warning that Russia's leader, Putin, that his back is against the wall. He could resort to more severe tactics. There's warnings about a cyber attack. He says it may be imminent. Let's watch the president here. Watch this.
Look, today my administration is issuing new warnings that based on evolving intelligence, Russia may be planning a cyber attack against us. As I said, the magnitude of Russia's cyber capacity is fairly consequential, and it's coming. The federal government is doing its part to get ready, but under U.S. law, as you all remember, the private sector, all of you, largely decides the protections that you will or will not take.
I gave them a list. If I'm not mistaken, I don't have it in front of me, 16 specific entities, 16 defined as critical infrastructure under U.S. policy, from the energy sector to our water systems.
First to you, Congressman, what's your take of this story? Does Putin really care about that list?
No, he doesn't. And, you know, it's amazing. Years ago, there was a movie called A Few Good Men. And in that, the question was, if you are so powerful and if people obey your orders, then why is he doing it? Well, just as that 65-minute call to Putin, 2 days later, Ukraine was invaded. These 16 pieces of infrastructure or categories apparently don't mean anything to Putin. So we're being told to get ready to be attacked by a country that we've said basically we can't respond to because they have a nuke and might use it. That is not the Reagan doctrine. That is not a doctrine that the United States has believed in for my entire life, and yet this is the new Biden standby doctrine. And I'm sorry, but it's not even leading from behind. It's not leading at all when you tell people to get ready to be attacked by a country as though that's okay.
Yeah, we hear you, Congressman, and KT, the president is basically saying it's up to the private sector. And are we going to see another big pipeline shut down like the Colonial Pipeline, which delivers fuel to the East Coast? What do you think?
I think it could be much worse than that. You know, it's a major vulnerability because our cyber defenses really only cover the U.S. government and the military. They don't cover anything in the private sector. When I went into the White House in the Trump administration, one of the first things I asked was, tell me about our offensive cyber capability, our deterrent. And I was told, well, the Obama administration, we have defenses, but we don't really have any offensive capability because the Biden administration, the Obama administration, and now the Biden administration, they thought that would be too provocative. So we never developed an adequate, deterrent, an offensive capability. We're sitting ducks for this stuff. I'm really concerned. I'm surprised there hasn't been a cyber attack on Ukraine already, but I'm very concerned about a cyber attack on the United States.
Yeah. Because they did cyber attack in the past and shut down their energy sector, the power grid, rather. Let's move on to the Supreme Court nomination hearings for Judge Brown Jackson. Yeah. Her legal philosophy largely unknown. The question is, will she be a jurist who upholds the Constitution, or will she still hearken back to her role as a public defender? Watch more of the fireworks today. Watch this.
I don't know you well, but I've been impressed by our interaction, and you've been gracious and charming. Why in the world would you call Secretary of Defense Rumsfeld and George W. Bush war criminals in a legal filing? It seems so out of character for you.
Every single case, 100% of them, when prosecutors came before you with child pornography cases, you sentenced the defenders to substantially below, not just the guidelines, which are way higher, but what the prosecutor asked for on average of these cases, 47.2% less.
If you're going to talk about what I said, I'm going to respond to what you said. If we close Gitmo and move them to Colorado, do you support indefinite detention under the law of war for these detainees?
I would just say I'm giving the facts. And
the answer is no. As long as they're dangerous, I hope they all die in jail if they're going to go back and kill Americans. It won't bother me one bit if 39 of them die in prison. That's a better outcome than letting them go. And if it costs $500 million to keep them in jail, keep them in jail because they're going to go back to the fight. Look at the friggin' Afghan government. It's made up of former detainees at Gitmo. This whole thing by the left about this war ain't working.
Congressman, your reaction. Senator Graham was referring to the judge's work as a public defender of Gitmo terror detainees after 9/11. What's your reaction? The judge says she didn't get to choose her clients. What's your take on what happened?
Well, she got to she got to decide whether to accuse the President of the United States of being a war criminal. So did she have any evidence that made him a war criminal? Has anyone actually said that we should try President George W. Bush as a war criminal? Of course not. So those are refreshing confrontations, though, because they're about her record. They're about things she said and believes. We're not asking her if she's ever committed rape. We've not accused her of some crime that there's no foundation for. We're asking questions about actual conduct as a judge, as a federal defender. Those things should be, and they are refreshing to hear those kinds of questions, because that's what should happen in a confirmation. Hasn't happened in the previous two, that's for sure.
Yeah, to the congressman's point, you know, it's been really hostile, these nomination hearings, KT. You know, those who are, you know, questioning the judge, are basically those questioners are being called racist, right? But this is, to the congressman's point, it's about the judicial record. I mean, the war criminal citation came up in a legal filing she made on behalf of a Gitmo detainee she was defending, saying that they were being, that their torture at the hands of the U.S. government is a war crime. Your take on that?
Well, I think that was kind of foolish on her part. But that probably is exactly what the Gitmo detainee was accusing the president of. Look, you know, I think you pick your fights. And for me, she's about as good as a far-left Democrat president and a far-left Democrat Congress and Senate you're going to get. And so the Senate's going to approve her under the new Senate rules. She's going to get confirmed. I'd rather pick my fights. Clearly, she should be, you know, investing. She should be talked to, and she should be having to make substantive answers about substantive questions. But I want to move on for my, you know, for my money. I really want to go for other issues that the Senate and the Republicans and conservatives can have a real effect on. Things like spending, things like, is there a new Iran nuclear deal? Things like, what about energy independence? What about the woke agenda? All those other issues. I'd rather save my fire for those, and this is not the hill I want to die on.
We hear you, KT. You know, Senator Blackburn and other senators, congressmen, are talking about her soft on crime record, that she had decided, or during the pandemic, to release criminals from the Department of Corrections, or had advised that. Your take on her positions there?
Well, not only are they soft on crime, softer, oddly enough, than the former Attorney General, now Vice President, was when she was in a leadership role in California. But here's the point, and I agree with KT that we have more important things here to talk about, but for the members of the Senate to make the point that this far-left president is making a far-left nomination that is going to lead undoubtedly to the court being steered even further to the left, that is a legitimate message to go on record for the American people to understand that this is a choice of the left to be soft on crime. And I think when you look at that, you ask the question is, when the next election comes up, midterm and the next presidential one, is that a direction America wants to continue going? And I think the answer is no. So there will be something there, but that's the reason that these substantive questions are so important.
Congressman Issa, KT McFarland, it's good to see you. Come back soon.